Dan Lesser with Mortenson Development. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councilors, chief, city staff. One of the common threads we heard was more information. So tonight, we're hopefully going to provide some of that. We also understand that this is a second reading for the rezoning, but as Director Ronchetti said, these are tough to kind of peel apart without kind of talking about everything. So maybe first, what are data centers, and then what does this one look like? And our project team is here to help with that. So what are data centers? They're critical pieces of our local and national infrastructure. That is a fact. Every time we pull out our phone, use our computers, shop online, talk to your kids on Zoom, whatever it is, all those things ping through a data center. And the more that we consume data, the higher the demand is for these structures across our country. So that's what data centers are. It's a very simple way to describe them, but I'll turn it over to the team here and we can talk specifically about this project.
Thanks, Dan. Brian Werdeman with Kimley Horn, one of the engineers working on the project from our team here. And then we got Jason Scrimshaw from Kimley Horn as well. So wanted to provide a little bit more technical background on the project as we are working towards the applications for a special use permit and a CIDP for a communication services facility, of which a lot of this information we also plan to present at Planning and Zoning tomorrow night. So let's start first by taking a look at the site. Both Chad and Eric had mentioned where the site is, but here's a map that depicts the location of the proposed development at the southwest corner of Midway Road and Morris Thomas Road, immediately east of the existing Minnesota Power Arrowhead substation, which has a significant impact and draw for this type of development. Additionally, with the strong county infrastructure and roadways adjacent to the site, as well as US Highway 2, provides great access for an industrial type project. If we go to the next slide, we wanted to give some background on the site studies that we have commissioned or have engaged other project partners to complete over the last couple of months. The first of which is a wetland delineation. So we have completed a field wetland delineation of the entirety of the project area, in which we've worked with the city, the county, Bowser, as well as the Minnesota DNR to establish boundaries across the site for existing wetland areas. We've completed a threatened and endangered species review, concurrent with our alternative urban area-wide review, which was before council at the last meeting. We've completed a cultural and archaeological survey in concurrence with the Fond du Lac tribe. We've completed a tree survey, mostly around the perimeter of the property, in identifying areas in which we can preserve existing vegetation to continue to create a natural buffer or screen. We've done a phase 1 environmental site assessment, and we've also completed a noise assessment or noise modeling specific to this project, in which we'll get into some more details further on in our presentation. If we go to the next slide, this is the currently proposed site plan for the development. This site plan is largely similar to that of which was included in the AUAR document. As Chad had mentioned, we're proposing 4 data center buildings, of which you can see one in the southwest corner, southeast corner, northwest corner, and northeast corner of the site. Those data center buildings are approximately 300,000 square feet in square foot floor area, and would be approximately 40 to 50 feet in height. Additionally, as far as structures on the campus, we're proposing 2 approximately 30,000 square foot office buildings, one of which are the 2 are generally located, one central to the site and then one kind of more southeastern portion of the site. Those buildings would be approximately 20 to 30 feet in height. And then there is one office warehouse storage building, which is approximately 45,000 square feet in floor area, which would be more located central to the entrance area. The site access would come off of Morris Thomas Road in the northwest corner of the property, adjacent to where Minnesota Power's existing gravel access driveway is located. That access point would be the primary entry into the site, in which there would be a gated secure entry point. There would be secure access or a secure perimeter around the entirety of the project. There would be one additional secondary access point, which is located more central to the campus off of Morris Thomas Road, which would provide a secondary means for potentially construction as well as emergency access long-term. A few of the elements on the site that helped, the many studies that we completed that helped inform this site plan, a number of which are the wetlands. So there is, as we had delineated, there's a series of wetlands throughout the property, which we'll get into a little bit more detail in a bit. But we are preserving what would be a substantial existing wetland complex in the southeast corner of the site, which is proximal to the existing trout stream. So the area on the site plan that's generally shown in white in the southeast corner is an existing wetland that would not be disturbed as part of the project. Throughout the middle of the site and the central portions, the buildings have been located strategically to preserve existing wetlands throughout the site that are existing in there today. And you'd see a number of proposed stormwater basins which have been strategically located as well across the property, which we'll get into a little bit more detail later on. Around the perimeter of the property, we've significantly increased the amount of setback or distance from the right-of-way to the proposed buildings above and beyond what is the baseline zoning requirements for the BLM zoning district. That setback is to provide an enhanced screen for landscaping, allow us to get in the perimeter fencing, develop some berms, and also install some screen walls and acoustical walls to help assist with some of the buffering from the project. If we go to the next slide, water usage for the project. Here's a graph that generally shows the anticipated water demand throughout the course of a normal day or operations. The data center buildings that are on the campus will not require water for cooling. This campus would be consistent with any other office or commercial development with its water usage, in that it would be used for restrooms, kitchen or cafeteria areas, laundry, showers, as well as landscape irrigation. The average daily use for the project, we're anticipating it to be anywhere between 30,000 gallons a day and 50,000 gallons a day, of which we studied up to 50,000 gallons a day in the AUAR. That's an equivalent to approximately 160 single-family residential units. And those are numbers that would be at full campus build-out. So post-construction of all 4 data center buildings. Wanted to note that anticipated water usage may be anywhere between 2 to 5% of the existing city's water system. If we go to the next slide, related to traffic for the project. So there's a number of stakeholders that are involved, obviously, with the proximity to good roadway infrastructure, both from the city of Hermantown, St. Louis County, and MnDOT District 1. Traffic from this site, based on historical like developments, we're anticipating that there would be approximately 1,920 daily trips coming to or from the facility, with the AM peak numbers being at 290 at full campus build-out upon completion of all 4 buildings. To give some context to these traffic numbers, that would be the equivalence of a medium-sized department store. In our experience in working on these projects, the traffic demand for a data center when compared to other, call it industrial manufacturing facilities on a similar acreage, it could generate anywhere between 25 to 50% of that traffic. So it is a lower demand post operations compared to a typical industrial type project. During construction, as Chad had noted earlier, there's a significant presence during construction to complete the build of the facility. Based on historical numbers, we're anticipating that that would be more than what is operationally for the AM and PM peaks, with those numbers being approximately 360 to 390 trips during the peak hours. So ultimately, we have evaluated and modeled the traffic that's been completed. There's a number of intersections that we've identified improvements that are warranted to. One of which is at the site access point off of Morris Thomas Road, the need to construct turn lanes to access the development site. At Midway Road and Morris Thomas Road, we've identified the need for a traffic signal as well as enhanced turn lanes to provide improved traffic to and from the development site. And additionally, one more improvement warranted at US Highway 2 and St. Louis River Road, which would be a westbound turn lane off of US Highway 2. With that, I think I'll turn it over to Jason here to speak more about acoustics.
Thank you, Brian. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. As Brian mentioned, my name is Jason Scrimshaw. I'm a fellow civil engineer at Kimley Horn. Happy to talk to you tonight about some more details on the project. And especially elements of the project that helped inform and shape the design as it's evolved. So I want to start with acoustics. We know that that is a topic of great interest to a lot of people. And maybe I'll start with just some housekeeping items about acoustics in general. Noise limits in Minnesota are set and established by Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, the MPCA, at a state level, and they're enforced locally at a city level. Those noise limits are dependent on adjacent land uses and are most restrictive near residential land uses. So our site will comply with the most restrictive residential noise ordinances. For our specific site, those ordinances are 60 decibels during daytime operations and 50 decibels during nighttime operations. That is the limit. We have conservatively designed our site and modeled our noise assessment to comply with 50 decibels in either daytime or nighttime operations. On this slide, you can see a helpful graphic that shows, a representative scale of comparative noise sources. The noise restrictions are measured in decibels, which, important to note, is not a linear scale, it's a logarithmic scale. So that means that every 10 decibels roughly is a doubling in the perceived level of noise or sound by the human ear. It also means that noises aren't compounded, so you can't take two 40 decibel level noises and combine them, and suddenly they make an 80 decibel noise. If you look at the graphic, that makes quick sense when you compare, two refrigerators plugged in the same room don't suddenly become the same noise as a motorcycle. So our site, because of that logarithmic scale, it becomes very important to model this in a very, very detailed, precise way to make sure that we're complying with the state ordinances. So we established a very detailed model that takes into account ground contact, topography, building location, building situation, as well as proposed mitigation measures. So our first pass of that model indicated that mitigation measures were warranted. So as you can see in the graphic on the left, we do have those noise contours being pulled in, that's representative of two different barrier walls as well as a large earthen berm. So along the eastern perimeter of the site, we're proposing an earthen berm with a noise wall on top of that. And on the north perimeter of the site, we're proposing a noise wall. These, like Brian mentioned in a previous slide, have the dual benefit of providing a visual buffer and screen as well as this noise abatement. If we flip to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about lighting. So our lighting on this site will be designed and governed similar to every other development in the city of Hermantown. We won't be seeking any kind of variance or special lighting considerations. As shown in the site plan slide, the setbacks that we're proposing are 10x of what's required. That helps us in meeting our light requirements. The city's requirement is that we don't provide any glare from our property onto neighboring adjacent parcels, and we also don't allow for light spillover from our site into other parcels. So one of the main ways we're achieving that is by our large setbacks, pulling the majority of our site infrastructure internal to the site. We've also been very deliberate and intentional about the selection and placement of our light fixtures. So placing them in sensible locations and using down lighting and inward lighting, using cutoff shields that allow the fixture unit to cut off that light spill. So we will be complying with all city lighting standards. On the next slide. So the graphic here is the existing wetlands on site. As mentioned previously, we've completed both desktop and field delineation of the existing wetlands. We've met both virtually and in person on site with a technical evaluation panel, or a TEP. The TEP is comprised of city and county staff, Bowser, which is the State Board of Water and Soil Resources, as well as the Minnesota DNR. We fully anticipate that the wetlands on site will be regulated by the Wetland Conservation Act and potentially the Army Corps of Engineers. So we'll be in the process of applying for an approved jurisdictional determination, which will determine our permitting course for wetlands. In getting to this point, we have gone through multiple evolutions of the site plan, overlaying wetlands, lighting, noise, landscaping, traffic, to really try to optimize for each one of these design elements. If we flip to the next slide, I want to touch on stormwater. So this is a cross-section of our typical stormwater basin. As mentioned previously, they're designed to be filtration basins or biofiltration basins. On the left side of the graphic, upstream of the basin is a pretreatment structure. So these structures are intended to provide a filtering of the initial flush, floatables, trash, large debris, to keep them from clogging up and impacting the efficiency of that filtration media. Downstream of that pretreatment structure would be our primary filtration bed. This bed would help provide a water quality benefit by filtering out total suspended solids and phosphorus, as well as helping with manage the temperature of runoff. So providing a filter media and that residence time for runoff to filter through the media helps manage the temperature control of runoff, which is the primary consideration when discharging towards a trout stream and a special waterway. The basins have also been designed to meet all city and state stormwater requirements related to rate control, making sure that our rate of discharge doesn't exceed the rate of discharge today. maintain those drainage patterns so that where water discharges today, it discharges in the future. And also the state requirement of volume and control. When you look at the placement of our stormwater basins as well as the preservation of existing wetlands, you can see the effort that went into the site planning to try to preserve and maintain the natural resources of the site. If we flip to the next slide, just to help orient everybody. So these are some perspective views. These two in particular are on the north side of the property. On the right side of the image would be Morris Thomas Road. So you can see a little graphic of a car. To the left of that vehicle then would be the north end of the private development. We wanted to show this just because there's so much topography across the site. Even in existing conditions, there's more than 100 feet of elevation change. In the proposed conditions, there would be some balancing to reduce that total differential. But as far as a visual and screening consideration goes, we are trying to take advantage of the natural topography to provide some screening. We're also providing, as Brian mentioned, a robust perimeter landscape plan. Within these landscape sections, you'll notice some shading or some color coding to those plantings. That's intended to highlight, a general time lapse of that landscaping. So showing from darker to lighter, a progressive growth of those plantings between 1 and 30 years. If we go to the next slide, these are looking north on Midway Road. And this really helps illustrate the benefit of the earthen berm and the sound wall in relation to the height of the site internally.
So that's the information that we've put together, trying to highlight a little bit more of the technical specifics of the project. Certainly appreciate you guys having us here and allowing us to give some additional details of what we've been working on, and stand for any questions that you may have for us.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Boucher, councilors and staff. My name is Julie Pierce. I'm the Vice President of Strategy and Planning for Minnesota Power. I'm responsible for the long-term planning and strategy and origination for Minnesota Power. Really pleased to be here this evening to be able to share a few thoughts and comments regarding electricity and how it's utilized and how you can hook up and become a new customer for Minnesota Power. I've been in the energy industry over 28 years, and I've been with Minnesota Power for 18 years. I've had the privilege to be able to be part of this beautiful region for 18 years and the robust electric infrastructure that has been created over that time frame. We have a long history, over 100 years of serving electric customers, residential, commercial, cabins, large industry. We actually have 155,000 customers that we serve in Northeast Minnesota, including this great city. We also serve some of the largest industrial customers in the nation. We are a 24/7 electric provider. Our product is electricity and it's measured in milliseconds. We must be reliable, affordable, and accessible. It's our responsibility and our obligation. So if someone wants more electricity and wants to join this great region, they need to go through a pretty rigorous, robust process to ensure that they have the access and availability to that infrastructure. Requests come in all the time from new residents, new commercial businesses, from car washes to new commercial buildings to new industrial expansions and new possibilities. Just this year, we've had hundreds of these interconnection or grid connect requests. Those grid connect requests go through, as I mentioned, a very disciplined, rigorous study process to ensure that there isn't going to be impact to the grid or if there is, that it's mitigated so that we can continue to provide our 7x24 reliable power around the clock at a reasonable cost. For large customers, like what we're talking about here, you heard about the project. They came to us with a request to interconnect to the grid, to connect. They wanted to connect right next door to where their project is at our Arrowhead substation. We took that interconnection grid connect request in with all of the other requests that we have. As I mentioned, we have several of these at any given point in time. That study goes on for months. It looks at not only the local area and city and neighborhood, it goes beyond to county, region, states, and even multiple states beyond us, excuse me. That study ensures that the power consumption by the new customer does not have negative impact and can be accommodated. If there's any needs for the system to be upgraded, there is a very rigorous process to identify what those are. We have a great team at Minnesota Power that studies this on an ongoing basis. Anything that's identified during those studies needs to be paid for and responsible for by the interconnection customer. This is similar if you wanted to put a new service in your garage, or if you wanted to build a business on your property. You would contact Minnesota Power, we would work with you and identify what the needs are for you to do that, whether it's underground, a cable to your garage, put a new meter on your house, or your business. And then we would identify what those costs are, and then you would have the choice about whether or not you would want to stay with your plan, or if you would like to not build that extra garage or that business expansion. So it's a process, it's iterative, and we study to ensure that the reliability of the system is maintained. Once a customer decides they do want to come join Minnesota Power, we ensure those studies are finalized and all of the impacts are looked at, and then we have them sign an agreement. It's called an interconnection agreement. It's governed by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC. They sign this agreement, which says that they will be responsible to pay for any line upgrades, substation upgrades, regional upgrades, even outside the borders of this town. They would be responsible for paying for those costs. That is a signed contract. It's filed with FERC, and that is what allows them to become an interconnected customer with Minnesota Power. Similar things go for commercial and residential customers. The power supply, which is also a very important part of the equation for providing electric service, is provided through long-term planning and looking at what would be needed if we had new load come to our customer base at Minnesota Power. There is a long-range planning process called the Integrated Resource Plan that is governed by the Public Utilities Commission of Minnesota. Minnesota is one of the highest, most robustly regulated states in terms of electric infrastructure and service in the United States. That plan identifies what would happen if we would add additional load to our grid, and what happens if we have to contract and lose load from our grid, which sometimes happens. That plan identifies each step, every resource, every new renewable resource, every wire that's needed, and is approved by the Public Utilities Commission. We are not able to build stuff without permission from the Public Utilities Commission. We also have a very robust policy in the state around clean energy. We have a mandate for 2040 to ensure that we have clean energy serving our customers. I'd like to say that Hermantown and Minnesota Power customers already enjoy a 50 to 60% renewable power supply right now. And we have plans in place through our integrated resource plan by 2035 to be 95% renewable energy. The requirements of the state require, even if our load grows, that we must continue to meet those goals and mandates for cleaner, renewable, reliable, and affordable energy. And that is governed by the Public Utilities Commission on a regular basis each time we would like to make an addition of a new load or a new generation resource. It is our job and our privilege and our responsibility to ensure that it's reliable electric service. So why we have to serve these new loads? Why do we want to serve new load? We want to serve new load because additional customers provide benefits to all customers. Specifically, additional customers help pay the mortgage. I like to use mortgage as an example. If you have more people living in your house paying the mortgage for all of your infrastructure and costs, then that burden is a lot less for all of the rest of the mortgage holders. It's similar with electric service. The more customers we have to share and spread the costs of our electric infrastructure in this region to keep it robust, reliable, and available is spread over more customers, more users. And that is a sharing that helps reduce the burden of our cost. Furthermore, there's other protections, customer protections that are in place. Minnesota, as I mentioned, is a very robust, forward-thinking state, not only in its electric service and planning, but also on where we are going as a state. In 2025, they passed landmark legislation specifically around data centers coming to our state. They wanted to make sure that as new customers in this new industry came to our state, that we had consumer protections, both electricity, water, and environmental protections to ensure that we could do it right here in this state. This legislation identifies clearly that if a new data center is to connect anywhere in the state of Minnesota, that existing customers cannot be impacted. Furthermore, they have to provide additional benefits. So the legislation is a great framework and a very useful framework as we're moving here in Northeast Minnesota, considering the potential for data centers. Minnesota Power is confident in the reliability of our grid that we've built up to serve the largest industrial customers, 7 by 24, for the past century. We're committed to achieving our carbon-free goals and proud to support the new economic investment in our region. Our strong and talented team is ready to assist with any questions as you continue through these early stages of consideration in this public process. And we thank you for your public service and your consideration of the Hermantown proposal in this community. Thank you.